Now it's time for Lefties Losing It, and let's start with the mad ravings of MSNBC anchor Lawrence O'Donnell, who is now just reporting his paranoid fantasies as facts. Here he seems to think that the Trump presidency is in its final dark days.
J.D. Vance is doing exactly what Gerald Ford did while the Nixon presidency was sinking and Richard Nixon was under increasing pressure over several months that led to his resignation. Gerald Ford said nothing. When things were the darkest for President Richard Nixon, Vice President Gerald Ford said nothing. And when Richard Nixon resigned the presidency, Vice President Ford said, "Our long national nightmare is over." Tonight, J.D. Vance is silent. Tonight, J.D. Vance is Gerald Ford.
One problem with that rant, well, several problems actually, including it is stark raving mad, but far from saying nothing, Vice President J.D. Vance has been speaking, and he has been doing interviews daily. As he noted himself, "I did 2 media interviews literally today." Well done, Lawrence, you absolute clown show. Now let's go to CNN and hear from Marjorie Taylor Greene, who seems to be a changed woman since she appeared on The View. Maybe they put something in her drink, because this is concerning. What are you doing, MTG?
I'm sorry for taking part in the toxic politics. It's very bad for our country, and it's been something I've thought about a lot, especially since Charlie Kirk was assassinated. Is that I'm only responsible for myself and my own words and actions, and I am committed, and I've been working on this a lot lately, to put down the knives in politics. I really just want to see people be kind to one another.
I don't know what's happening there. What is she doing? She's apologising on CNN for her rhetoric? Really? As Matt Walsh noted, leftists celebrated Charlie Kirk's murder and then elected an Attorney General who openly fantasises about killing us and our children, and now Republicans are going on CNN to apologise for their toxic rhetoric. What the hell is going on? What the hell indeed? Do better, Marjorie. Now, here is Bill Maher giving his fellow lefties a quick history lesson in what happens when you embrace the failed doctrine of socialism.
Here's capitalist South Korea at night from space. Here's socialist North Korea. Yeah. In 1990, Venezuela was wealthier than Poland. But then Poland, finally free of Soviet-style economics, went all in on capitalism. And now their economy is as big as Japan. And people there have high wages, low inflation, cars, vacations, homes. Meanwhile, Venezuela traded capitalism for Hugo Chavez's socialism for the 21st century, which turned out to be like socialism in the last century or any century. Mess. It turned one of Latin America's richest countries into one of its poorest. Low wages, high inflation, shortages, outages, 8 million people fleeing. If you think New York can somehow reinvent this wheel, you're in for a rude awakening.
Well said, Bill Maher, but I think he knows as well as I do that they're not going to listen to him. Now, it's clear that CNN doesn't want to join CBS and ABC in cutting Donald Trump a massive 8-figure check for deliberately defaming him. Watch this disclaimer before a question was asked.
That mentioned the president, and we do want to be clear, the president, Trump, did not receive or send any of the messages, which largely predated his time as president. He's not been accused of any criminal wrongdoing in connection with Epstein or Maxwell.
It was very thorough indeed. It really wasn't a point asking the question after all that. Now, let's go back to MSNBC, the mental health asylum masquerading as a news network, and Jen Psaki was quick to correct herself after a defamatory comment about the president, labelling him a predator.
In supporting what Donald Trump is doing.
You're talking about the other predators out there, in addition to Trump. I mean, I'm not saying he is. We don't know all the details about that. I just mean in addition to what we've learned about Epstein and others, there's other predators out there.
There are.
Welcome back. Let's talk more about the latest Jeffrey Epstein revelations. Now, the real scandal here is not the fake manufactured narratives pushed by the increasingly desperate Democrats who redacted already released information to make it appear as if Donald Trump had spent hours with a mystery Epstein victim. But that victim was known and widely reported on. It was Virginia Giuffre, who made it clear repeatedly that Donald Trump had done nothing wrong. She said that repeatedly. She wrote it in her memoir. And most importantly, she submitted sworn testimony to the court saying just that. But the Democrats redacted her name in the email to make it appear that this was some new scandal. The real story is a convicted sex offender, Jeffrey Epstein, plotting with the Democrats to get Donald Trump. Yes, the pedophile and staunch Democrat was even feeding questions to a House Democrat during a 2019 congressional hearing. The other story is discredited author Michael Wolff plotting with Epstein to get Trump. That's what those emails reveal. And why did Jeffrey Epstein hate Donald Trump so much? Well, it's not just because Epstein was a prolific Democrat donor, but as Michael Wolff himself admitted, Epstein suspected that Trump had reported him to the authorities.
At that point, Epstein's legal problems began. The police began to investigate him over allegations that he was that there were underage women coming to his house. Epstein believed that it was Trump who first informed the police about what was going on at Epstein's house. And from that point on, they were nothing but bitter enemies.
And this is what he's telling you. This is one of the instances of what he's telling you.
Yes.
Joining me now is Newsweek's senior editor-at-large and Article 3 Project senior counsel Josh Hammer. Josh, this is an enormous scandal. The Democrats working with Epstein, a known sex offender, to get Donald Trump.
Yeah, Rita, everything that you need to know about the story is based on the relevant timeline, which is that Democrats had some mild success in the off-year elections about 2 weeks ago at this point in New York City, New Jersey, and Virginia. And then inexplicably, but on the other hand, I guess entirely predictably, they caved on the shutdown fight. Like, they totally caved. I mean, Chuck Schumer epically capitulated there. It's the irony of all ironies. He was fighting the shutdown fight to try to forestall an AOC primary challenge in his New York Senate race in 3 years. Now the left is all angry at him. So in order to try to get the momentum back in their favor, in order to try to divert attention from the victorious Republicans and to try to bring the spotlight back to how Democrats are allegedly doing something, fill in the blank there, mysteriously these 20,000 emails magically appear. Look, Rita, my humble opinion is that the Epstein story ranks probably somewhere between the 40th and 50th most important story to the American people. I think the fact that Democrats are resorting to this, frankly, reeks of desperation. It's not just hypocrisy and desperation, though. It is, frankly, just astounding that anyone would take them at their word. To be clear, there were horrific, detestable, loathsome, some of the worst crimes that you can even imagine occurred in this horrific case, roughly 2 decades or so, give or take there. Everyone wants justice for the victims. But it's hard to take these same Democrats seriously, Rita, when we know that there was one particular president who was much closer to Jeffrey Epstein than Donald Trump, who, by the way, kicked Jeffrey Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago, as White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt was quick to note this past week. And that Democrat president was very chummy with Jeffrey Epstein. The noted Democrat donor was Bill Clinton. Funny you should ask. I don't see Ro Khanna or any of these other House Democratic leaders, Hakeem Jeffries. None of them are talking about Bill Clinton's various trips on the so-called Lolita Express, Jeffrey Epstein's private plane. Why is that? I think the American people see through this, Rita. They see this as a nakedly political stunt there. Donald Trump, yes, he knew Jeffrey Epstein. Guess what? So did a lot of people. A lot of very powerful, very prominent people knew Jeffrey Epstein. The fact that he was corresponding with him, frankly, means absolutely nothing whatsoever in my judgment there. This is a pure political stunt. The American people are going to see right through it, I think.
Well, just finally on the Democrats' links with Jeffrey Epstein, the New York Post has reported that Epstein was feeding questions to Stacey Plaskett during a 2019 congressional hearing, giving her real-time help on how to damage President Donald Trump. And there are also reports that Epstein was in meetings with Obama White House counsel Catherine Rumler. Tell me about that connection. What's that about?
Well, it's actually potentially even worse than that. So there was one of the look, there are 20,000 emails, so there's a lot that comes up there. But there was actually a potentially even more interesting email than this that I saw involving Barack Obama. That's why I thought of it. And this email has to do I'm trying to remember which election cycle it was. I think it was the 2016 election cycle. And there was an email from Epstein talking about how Barack, now he misspelled it. There were two R's, not one. So it was misspelled in the email. But there was an email from Jeffrey Epstein talking about how Barack is coming over for dinner tonight. And if you actually look on the timestamp, I think this was in late October, November. It was around the precipice of the 2016 election. If memory serves, Barack Obama was out on the campaign trail campaigning for then candidate Hillary Clinton. Well, guess where he was at that time, at the same time that Jeffrey Epstein sent that email? Oh, yeah, he was in South Florida. He was campaigning in South Florida at the same time that Jeffrey Epstein was talking about having someone named Barack over to his house for dinner in Palm Beach. I wonder who that could be, right? So, I mean, Bill Clinton is one thing. We've known about these Bill Clinton ties to Jeffrey Epstein for years, but I think that the curious onlooker might, if the curious onlooker here is not hypocritical, unlike Hakeem Jeffries and Ro Khanna, if the curious onlooker is actually intellectually honest, I think one might be inclined to ask, what did Barack Obama know and when did Barack Obama know?
Of course, it could be an entirely different Barack with two R's, so we'll wait and see.